Welcome, everybody. It's Friday, January 5th. John Arvosis here with the Arvosis Report. I am using my built-in microphone on my Mac today, unplugged everything else. So let me know how the sound goes. Let me know how the sound goes because it's still acting up. There's no microphone, there's no peripherals, nothing's plugged in. So I want to know how it sounds today. So let me know if it's acting up. Mind you, I'm at mom's, like I said. So who knows? All right, let me get let me get Instagram rolling, and then let me get there we go. Let me get TikTok rolling, and then we are ready to roll. So hang on here. Zoom live. More update to go live. There we go. All right. Hey guys. I did watch Biden's speech earlier. I got bored, but what do you do? I can't listen to him speak. He bores the F out of me. It's so boring listening to him. He's not a public speaker. It's sad. I mean, I like him doing more PR and stuff, but he's so bad at it. It's just like a hard. Anyway, we'll talk about it later. I'm going to talk about it at the end of the today's show. Anyway, hello guys. Hello Clem. TikTokers, YouTubers, etc. How are we today? As always, we're going to wait a minute or two for folks to sort of smoothly join us from TikTok and YouTube, etc. But yeah, we were saying Biden's speech today. I just got bored to death. I just can't watch him speak. I don't like political speeches anyway, but I got bored to death. Anyway, we'll talk about it. Anyway, hey, Succeed. Hey, Marie. Thank you, Critter, for the gift. Oh, and Succeed as well. Well, if the sound's distorted, then it's something else going on because there's nothing plugged in anymore. This is the streaming service I'm using them, Jennifer. I was testing that today. I'm just going to fill you guys in quickly on YouTube, and then I don't want any more comments on the sound because it kind of interrupts me. If anybody brings it up, the rest of you wait and fill them in. Nothing's plugged in. I'm using the computer itself, my laptop sound. There's nothing even plugged in. So if the sound is messing up, there's something weird going on. Do keep a note of it because I'd like to know at the end what it's doing wrong. Meaning, does it still doing that in and out thing and all of that? But I think it's something going on with the streaming service I'm using. Yeah. It's not the mic. It's not the mic clearly because everything's unplugged. So, all right. Anyway, hey guys on TikTok, Ernie, thank you. I'm just trying to dog our little tech issues on YouTube. That's not the issue, Evie. What do you think this is? Again, we're not discussing this anymore because it really ruins the show, but everything is unplugged from the computer. If the sound is still messing up, it's not the microphone. It's the connection, it's something else. It's the internet. Everything's unplugged. There's no microphone issues. It's still happening, which means there's something going on with the connection, which is probably the streaming service. All right, so TikTokers, hello. Let's get another maybe half minute and then we'll get rolling here. I love tech problems. So much fun. Well, no, because at the same time you need the feedback. I need the feedback because I need to know what's going on. It just gets distracting because usually people don't know other people have weighed in, and then it's like, yeah, we'll see what happens in DC next week with my good mic. Hopefully everything's back to normal, or it's the streaming service, which could be the issue as well. Do I report on Palestine, Gaza, Israel, but when there's news. There really hasn't been anything for a few days, so I haven't really been doing much with it. I'm using StreamYard. Anyway, okay, guys, I'm going to get rolling here. So welcome, everybody. John Arvosis here. It is Friday night, January 5th here in America. I am in Chicago, normally in Washington, D.C. I will be heading back to Monday, so I'll be seeing you guys from Washington next week. Basically, this is a show where I cover the latest news from Ukraine and also other news when it comes up. Jumped in from time to time on what's going on with Israel and Gaza. Also, the American election stuff. We'll talk a little bit about that tonight at the end of the show. U.S. elections. That's going to be a bigger and bigger part. Thank you, Detta, for the gift of stuff that I cover over the next year because it's very difficult to be someone who reports on political news in America and ignore the presidential election. kind of a big issue out there for everybody. So we'll see about that. But today I will be covering Ukraine. Again, not much to. No offense to the folks interested in Israel, but there's no news again. I mean, there's really no news. And there's like little itty bitty bits like the Israeli cabinet's fighting and Israel's talking about how they're going to manage the war afterwards. None of this is news in my view. It's all very minutia stuff. And the Houthis rallied in Yemen to say how proud they are that they're attacking America. It's like boring. Like I said, I kind of want to cover the stuff when I think there's something for you to learn, and that stuff is just boring and there's nothing new. In any case, we're doing Ukraine today, as always. I will do the first half of the show telling you guys the latest news and what we've got going on from Ukraine. Second half of the show, we'll be taking your questions, your opinions, etc. For anybody who wants to slip a question in the first half, you can try. But I'm not always looking at the comments in the first half of the show. It's a little more complicated. You know what I mean? Like I'm sort of busy doing the news part. But if you do a super chat question on YouTube, that is the one thing where I will always stop and get to your question because those are paid questions. And since they're a gift to support the show, as a thank you, I will always get to those as the next thing I talk about. Otherwise, please do keep the gifts coming on TikTok as well, guys. The TikTok gifts actually add up significantly. I've been doing this since the war broke out. Thank you, Eva. And the way I've been able to do it is with your guys' gifts, your guys' memberships, your subscriptions on TikTok, subscriptions on Discord, by the way, if you want to subscribe on YouTube as a monthly member. Ko-fi, you can access that, bottom of the screen here. You guys can find Ko-fi, ko-fi.com/Aravosis. It's another service to sign up for monthly. But you guys support my work. It helps me a lot. Thank you for that. All right, let's get rolling here. So tomorrow. So tomorrow morning, last little point here on Ukraine. Thank you, Tom. Tomorrow morning, we've got our Coffee Talk, which is our monthly show that we do, actually weekly, that we do every Saturday morning. Thank you, Arifa. Was that Lori as well, for the paid subscribers. So it's the monthly subscribers. I will be doing the show Monday morning, tomorrow morning, all over the place today. Tomorrow, Saturday morning at noon Eastern Time US, 11 o'clock Central Time. It's 11 o'clock Chicago time, noon Washington, D.C. or New York time. And for the monthly subscribers on TikTok, YouTube, etc., the TikTokers, thank you. You ever know for the gift there. You guys can join us on TikTok at noon Eastern Time US. The rest of you monthly subscribers can join us on Discord. Same time. All right, let's get rolling here. So today is day 680 of Vladimir Putin's special 3-day military operation. Institute for the Study of War is a think tank in Washington, D.C. They're very good. Anybody who watches my show for a while knows that I mentioned them a lot. They're very good. Thank you, Adventures. They cover Gaza, Israel. They cover the Ukraine war. I mean, they're basically a foreign policy think tank. Very good guys. They had an interesting sort of analysis up today on the lessons from the Ukraine war as far as what China will take with regards to Taiwan, et cetera. I want to read you sort of one quick paragraph. Thank you, Cami, that ISW wrote, and thank you, Adventures, as well, that I think is very interesting, and I just want to talk about it a little because it, again, backs up a lot of what I've been telling you about my concerns. Thank you, Jetta, about how the U.S. and also Europe have been handling the war. Thank you, Marcy and Cami. Institute for Study of War. If Russia wins in Ukraine, U.S. adversaries, thank you, Alexander, U.S. adversaries will learn that the U.S. can be manipulated into abandoning its interests in a winnable fight. Learning how to diminish U.S. decision superiority is a dangerous lesson for U.S. adversaries, especially China, to learn. Real quick, thank yous. Here's Sean Martin, and I got Alexander. Let me read the first part again. If Russia wins in Ukraine, U.S. adversaries will learn that the United States can be manipulated into abandoning its interests in a winnable fight. Thank you, Ash. What they're saying is that Russia has been successfully manipulating the U.S. into not supporting Ukraine and abandoning the fight. Thank you, Max. They particularly are talking about sort of Russian information programs. So I think they mean a lot of stuff, actually. They mean Russia playing games with the internet, as we know that Russia's been putting a lot of disinformation, thank you, Max, that kind of stuff, right? You know, the disinformation online, the fake news, all the stuff that people sadly believe when they see it, and they don't realize so much of it's coming from Russia. I also think a lot of the stuff with Gaza and Israel is also coming from the Russians. I think it is. Some of it's real, but so much of it is so fake. I mean, like literally every day I'm going through stuff. It's just today there was fake stuff about Israel, fake stuff about dead Palestinians. I mean, you name it. It's the Russians are playing a role in it because of the level of the fake stuff that's out there. Thank you, Ellie. But what ISW is saying is, in its most general sense, the Russians convinced the U.S. to basically back out of Ukraine. They did it by convincing the Russians, the Republicans, I'm calling them the Russians, By convincing the Republicans not to support Ukraine. Thank you, Ali, for the gift. As you know, currently the U.S. Has no more money to give Ukraine, no more weapons, no more anything, because Republicans are refusing to continue funding the war. Why are Republicans doing that? Mostly because of Donald Trump. Donald Trump and his MAGA agenda, very pro-Putin, very anti-Ukraine. Trump came out after the Russian invasion of Ukraine in 2014. Trump was already running for president in 2015. Thank you, adventures. Trump came out and said that it was right for Putin to take over Crimea. It was Russian. They spoke Russian anyway. He had no problem with it. So Trump justified the Russian invasion of Ukraine the first time around, which led to this recent invasion again. So you've got Trump somehow bought out by the Russians. God knows how, but they did it. You've got Trump convincing the Republican Party to go along with them. You've got Trump certainly convincing the MAGA people. And a number of the MAGA people also seem convinced. They're not just convinced by Trump. I think they've been convinced by Russia as well. There's a lot of really weird stuff. I mean, never thought in my life I'd be saying this because it's not, I mean, I was a Republican. This isn't the kind of thing you say about Republicans. There are a lot of very weird connections between Russia, Moscow, and the Republican Party. And it's very weird. Thank you, adventures. Including several years ago, a number of Republican senators went and spent the 4th of July, our national holiday, right, our Independence Day, in Moscow. Something a Republican senator would never do. You don't go abroad on the 4th of July, and you definitely don't go to the enemy. I mean, to Russia. You just don't. In any case, the lesson from Ukraine has been, so A, Putin has been able to manipulate Trump and manipulate the Republican Party. Okay, that's been the first problem. The second problem is he's been able to manipulate Biden, and I talk about this a lot, in that from the beginning, President Biden was afraid of Putin's nuclear weapons. Now, yes, everyone should be afraid of Putin's nuclear weapons. Nukes are bad. Nuclear war is bad. Yeah, that's a given. But Biden publicly fretted about it. Anybody who saw my show, we're talking when the war first broke out, knows I was sort of livid at the fact that Biden would constantly talk about how Putin has nuclear weapons. If we get into a war with Russia, it'll be World War III. We can't afford to get into a war with Russia. And he kept saying it publicly. And I was like, you know, do we need to keep whining publicly so the Russians can hear us going, we're afraid of Putin. We can't afford to go to war with Putin because he'll kill us. That's not the kind of thing you say publicly if you're trying to deter Putin. If Putin hears that, Putin's going to go, this is great. Biden's afraid of going to, I've said this at the time, Biden's terrified of going to war with me. He will do anything to stop going to war with me because Biden said, you don't go to war with nuclear powers or it's World War III and the world ends, right? That combination of Biden from the beginning being, I think, petrified in a very bad way of Vladimir Putin's nukes, and Putin, by the way, playing a psychological game with Biden, where he convinced Biden that, oh, I'm so dangerous, I'm so scary, right? That Biden pulled punches, never gave Ukraine the support they needed, and that's why Ukraine is in the situation it's in now, where Russia and Ukraine are basically in a stalemate, because we held back, the West held back, the US, France, and Germany especially held back, and we never wanted Ukraine to win, and Ukraine is winning. So the twofold thing, and I'll move on with the news now, the twofold thing from ISW is the Institute for Study of War, is I think that the lessons, and they mentioned specifically China, that what lessons is China taking from this? And I think China is looking at the Ukraine war and saying, yeah, America and Europe got involved, but from the beginning they were terrified. They said, we don't want to lose a country to, a dictatorship. We don't want to lose a democracy, but when it comes down to it, if that democracy is being attacked by a nuclear state, we're going to hold off. We're going to help, but we're not going to help that much. And after a couple of years, we're going to get bored. And if that's the lesson China takes, and frankly, it's the lesson China probably should take from this attack, is that the U.S. is a pushover, that our politics will, basically all you have to do is buy off. Thank you, Ava. Buy off one of the political parties, and the U.S. will get bored, and Europe will get bored. And Europe will be afraid. We will both be afraid of China. Now, final point I would make, though, I also think it's a mistake for China to conclude that, only because the Republican Party hates China. They absolutely hate China. The Republican Party, I think, would be willing to go to war with China over Taiwan. Thank you, Critical. And Blue, who's that Blue Ariel? I also think Democrats would too. So, I mean, but here's the thing. And this isn't contradictory, though, what I'm saying. I think absolutely the U.S. would go to war with China over Taiwan. I think Biden, for example, would be afraid of China's nukes. Yes. Thank you, Kronos. That would be a problem. I also think China is going to misunderstand what happened in Ukraine and assume it means America may not even get involved in Taiwan, not understanding the breadth of American support for Taiwan. It, Bottom line is the way we supported Ukraine, which at first looks like a lot, and then when you dig into it, you realize we kind of screwed Ukraine over. I mean, we helped them, but we helped them just enough not to die. We didn't help them enough to save them, and we did it on purpose. Thank you, Chris, for the TikTok gift. In any case, I just think it's very dangerous for Taiwan and China because I think China is going to take the lesson that we're pushovers, and it's worth getting into the war. Thank you, John, because we'll walk after 2 years, and it makes war more ironically by the Republicans saying, we don't want war in Ukraine, right? Thank you, Booty. It makes war in Taiwan more likely, which I think is really big. That's an interesting question. Sorry, Kelly made an interesting observation. Thank you, Ash. Kelly made an interesting. I do speak French. I do not speak German, though, sadly. Ich spreche kein Deutsch. That's as far as I can do. Kelly says, I really think we can't underestimate the effect the pullout from Afghanistan had on the initial reaction to the invasion. Everyone was getting involved in another long-running conflict. I think that's very true. I think it's very true. I don't even think. I'm not interesting. I'm not sure whether the withdrawal from Afghanistan mattered. I mean, it was a chaos, right? But I think the U.S. pulled out of Afghanistan and pulled out of Iraq, and we did not want to get into another war. 20 years of 2 wars that were kind of a failure, right? We didn't want to get into another. That is certainly one aspect of what happened with Ukraine, getting into it. But clearly on the Republican side, that's not what's going on. I mean, Trump is beholden, whatever it is, to Putin and the Russians. That's what's going on with Trump. Trump runs the Republicans. Some Republicans may be isolationist because they don't like the fact that we were in Iraq and Afghanistan and it didn't go well. I'm sure that's true. But I guess, I mean, I don't know. I'm not really sure about it. I'm just not really sure about the Afghanistan thing as far as the withdrawal being a mess. Also, I'm not sure which way you're suggesting it, Kelly, whether you mean that with the withdrawal, for example, would whether Russia or China or somebody look at the withdrawal and look at it in a way where they say, thank you, Kronos, for the gift, where it makes them more likely to attack next time because the withdrawal was such a mess. I'm not convinced that withdrawal being a mess should have given them any lesson. I think it's just simply the issue of America had been in 2 wars for almost 20 years. Neither war went well, and that should have, basically, that meant the public wasn't in the mood for another war. But again, the public was in the mood for a war with Ukraine, which is also part of my issue with Biden. Public support was wildly in favor of supporting Ukraine. Thank you, Byron, for the little crowd. So I don't think Biden needed to pull punches. People were on his side. He could have done more. It wasn't like, oh, now he's in trouble with the polls, right? Now it's hard to do more because Biden's in trouble. Biden had the polls on his side before, and he didn't push for more. So, all right. Let's get into the news of the day. Ukraine says Russia attacked with 29 drones overnight. 21 of the drones were shot down. Ukrainian forces yesterday struck Crimea, which I'd mentioned. Thank you, Josh. They apparently struck a Russian ammunition warehouse in Russian-occupied Crimea. Those are the attacks I was telling you before the show last night. Ukraine's military, this was interesting actually. Ukraine's military intelligence agency published a video showing a Russian Su-34 fighter jet being set on fire at an airbase 1,000 miles into Russia. 1,000 miles, I don't know if we're talking 1,400 kilometers, something like that. That's really far. I was near Chelyabinsk, I guess. So 1,000 miles into Russia. The Ukrainians appear, because frankly, they wouldn't be posting the video unless they did it. I mean, they clearly, it's possible they didn't do it. It's 1,600 miles? Okay. It's possible they didn't do it, but they clearly are insinuating they did do it. That's pretty damn good, lighting a jet on fire 1,000 miles into Russia. Ukraine also sent a team into Belgorod. Belgorod is the town, I think the other day I pointed to the wrong place on the map. Belgorod is not down here. Belgorod is right up here across from Kharkiv, right into Russia. Ukraine's been attacking a lot there. They sent a team into there in the last couple of days. I think it might have been yesterday. Some kind of a explosives team or something to sort of raise hell. And very funny, the Russians responded. The Russians have been getting very worried about Belgorod. And the local Russian officials told citizens in Belgorod to tape on their windows to protect themselves from frequent Ukrainian shelling. Now, it may not be a terrible idea. Thank you, Grumpy, for the gift. It may not be a terrible idea. I think the idea is you put tape on the windows, and then if the window something explodes near the window, you don't get a ton of little shards of glass coming in, which is wise. But telling everybody, oh, the Ukrainians keep it, but actually the Ukrainians keep blowing up your city. Here's just put tape on your window, you'll be fine. I almost wonder whether telling everybody to put tape on their windows causes even more fear, because now they've even told you, yes, you are all at risk, right? You are all at risk. You all need to somehow protect your windows. I like that. I just think it psychologically puts even more fear on the Russians. What do we got here? Oh yeah, so the Russians have been attacking more electrical plants in Ukraine. This is interesting because there was talk in the last couple of days by the British Ministry of Defense saying that the Russians are focusing much more this time than they did last winter. Thank you, Kronos. On going after Ukrainian defense production. That basically last winter the Russians were focusing a ton on going after Ukrainian electrical production. This year was more defense, weapons, things like that. Well, that is not at the exclusion of going after electrical stuff. This was a thermal plant inside Ukraine. The Russians, let me see, the Russians damaged it yesterday, and it has been hit more than a dozen times in the past 2.5 months. So the Russians keep going again and again and again at the same plants. They're still trying to take out power. Norway's F-16 fighter jets have landed in Denmark. Norway this week had promised 2 F-16 fighter jets that it was going to be providing to Denmark to train Ukrainians. They did arrive today, which is great. They're also sending 10 instructors. Russia confirmed that it is, this is interesting. So a number of you guys had asked me today over at we've got a Discord community. It's discord.aravosis.com. But a number of folks had asked me if I had heard about Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant and the Russians cutting off access. Looked into it, and in fact, the Russians did confirm today that they yet again cut off access to United Nations inspectors at the Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant. Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant is in southern Ukraine, right at the tip here. Land that's occupied by the Russians, so right on the south part of the river here. Russia, reminder, controls all of this. So right at the south part of what Russia controls, I should say, the northern part of what Russia controls, right here. And the Russians have controlled the nuclear plant for a while. And the UN has been accessing it for months, going to monitor it because they're worried about a nuclear plant in the middle of a war zone. And the Russians just cut off the UN's access to certain parts of the plant. Now, why? Listen to this. The Russians claim it's for safety reasons. Responding to an IAEA, International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA statement saying their team had been blocked from reactor halls, and officially Russia's Rosatom, which is the Russian Nuclear Energy Agency, alleged that the UN teams tried to access containment shells. Now listen to this. A containment shell, and especially a sealed one, is not a museum or an area for free walks. So basically, the Russians decided to mansplain the United Nations nuclear inspectors, thank you, Tom, and say, you see, the problem is the nuclear inspectors, mind you, these people have spent their life working on nuclear energy, so that they know what this is. The nuclear inspectors wanted to visit a part of the plant that's very dangerous, and they thought it was just like going to a movie or a play or something. They didn't understand that it was a dangerous part of the plant. Obviously, the nuclear inspectors know exactly what's going on, which again, the Russians are doing this to be jerks. They could be trying to hide something. It is also just as likely the Russians are doing it to ramp up tensions because that's what they do. It is always about psychological warfare with the Russians. They want to scare you. The very fact that I got questions about it today is why the Russians are doing it. They want to make you worried. They want to make you say, uh-oh, is the nuclear plant in trouble? Uh-oh, are the Russians doing something? Uh-oh, right? Nuclear, scary. It's all about playing psychological games, which again is what the Russians do. Ukraine and Latvia are going to work on a joint project to produce drones over the next year. That's great. This was interesting. Chechen leader Ramzan Kadyrov, who's the guy with the beard, the kind of the Amish beard guy, who's a Russian or Chechen, whatever, kind of a jerk. They're the ones who like to take videos of themselves on Instagram and stuff and YouTube, like fight for Russia, but not really fight. They just take videos of themselves. Well, He is offering the U.S. 20 Ukrainian prisoners of war in exchange for lifting the U.S. sanctions on his family. I thought that was very interesting. That was very interesting. I mean, it it sounds like the sanctions are bothering him, right? It sounds like the sanctions are having some impact if he's asking the U.S. to lift the sanctions. I just think that's very interesting. And finally, Sweden is going to withdraw aid to Mali's military junta. Mali is a government in Africa, kind of Western Africa, north of Cote d'Ivoire, that has a military junta that took over a military government, sadly, a while ago. And the Swedes are now going to be cutting off foreign aid to Mali in response to the Malian government supporting the junta, supporting Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and overall supporting Russia, which is kind of bad. Anyway, let me talk about U.S. election stuff really quick, and then we'll do our Q&A and everything else. Quick sip of water again. Please do keep the gifts coming, guys. Remember, I've got to pay the bills, and that's how I do the show. I've been doing this for 2 years, and I've been able to do it because you guys have paid the bills, so please keep the gifts coming. U.S. election stuff. Biden gave a speech today about the threat Donald Trump poses to our democracy. I think the speech was very important. I think the topic is very important. I think it is very important that people keep putting that message out there. Thank you, Cerveza, Timothy, and Laurie, because it's true, and he does pose an incredible danger, and I think we have to keep reminding people. Thank you, Cerveza and Renzo. The issue is Biden's speech was incredibly important. Thank you, Adrian. And when I say that, it matters. What I mean is I got bored to death watching the speech. If I got bored to death and I care about it, thank you, Chazak, it means other people that we're trying to convince probably lasted even shorter period of time than I did. Now, I don't know what you do about it because Biden is a horrible speaker. He is. Again, not knocking the guy. Thank you, Sheila. He just is. Having said that, the answer isn't to not have these guys speak, right? Because we need thank you, Sheila, whether it's talking about Trump and democracy, whether it's talking about Ukraine for that matter, we need to keep talking about these things. But he's just boring as hell. And I don't know what you do about it. I think part of it too, shorter speeches. The guy's boring. I don't want to see a 20-minute speech of Biden. I think Biden needs to be doing a lot of speeches, but not 20 minutes long. Make the speech 8 minutes long. Make it 8 minutes of very good stuff, and boom, you're done. Actually, Martin just said the thing. Keep it short and to the point. I think so too. I think it needs to be short, but long enough that you've got some really good quotes, some really good things. But it could be 5 minutes long, but it's got to be very good and to the point. And he's just not. Let me read you a little bit of what he said from one of the news stories. Biden warned that Trump plans to launch an assault on democracy if returned to the White House. Thank you, Ryan, for the gift. Trump's assault on democracy isn't just part of his past. It's what he's promising for the future, Biden said. Thank you, Tom, as well. He's been straightforward. He's not hiding the ball. His first rally for the 2024 campaign opened with a choir of January 6th insurrectionists singing from prison on cell phone. Oh, I didn't even know that. Oh, my God. I didn't even know that. Oh, my God. His first rally for the 2024 campaign opened with a choir of January 6th insurrectionists singing from prison by cell phone while images of January 6th played on big screens behind him. Okay, I did not even realize that. That's horrific. He continued, Trump began his 2024 campaign by glorifying the failed violent insurrection on our Capitol. The guy who claims law and order stands for lawlessness and disorder. Trump's not concerned about your future. I promise you, Trump is now promising a full-scale campaign of revenge and retribution, his words, for some years to come. He's right, but I think we just got to keep talking about it because you know what? I don't really care if it bothers people. I don't care if people are like, we don't have true. Let's talk about the issues. We've got a guy trying to take over our government who's dangerous. He's made it clear he doesn't believe in our democracy. He's made it clear he's got weird allegiances to our enemies. He's made it clear that he wants to use the presidency for profit. And kind of the irony that Republicans claim that Biden did this. But mind you, there's zero proof. They have zero proof of Biden. They've admitted already. They have no proof. They're going ahead with the Biden impeachment, but they've admitted on Fox News. They admitted they don't have any proof that Biden did anything wrong. But his son's an idiot, and his son is an idiot. But because Biden's son's an idiot, they claim Biden did this. When in fact, we know Trump and his family got millions, actually billions. Trump's son-in-law, what's his face, Kushner, got $2 billion from the Saudi government. $2 billion, folks. Imagine if Hunter Biden got $2 billion. Boy, would we be talking about that. Who talks about that? Ivanka Trump, his daughter, got a patent from the Chinese she was waiting for forever. It was a patent or trademark for some goods of hers. Got it while Trump was president. I mean, unbelievable the stuff that he's done. In any case, so I think it's important to talk about this stuff. In any case, finally, want to say, interestingly, Haley and DeSantis. So I mentioned before Nikki Haley was going after Donald Trump, the Republican. She's a Republican presidential candidate, the only woman in the race. Um, has a chance. I would say she's kind of becoming the number two person behind Trump. Trump is the number one guy on the Republican side. Haley, I think, is becoming number two. The question is whether it's too late for her to do that. But she lately, she's a big Trump supporter, worked for Trump, criticized Trump at one point, then defended him. She goes back and forth a lot on the Trump thing. Thank you, Kronos. She could be actually smashed says vice president. She very well could be Trump's vice president. Thank you, Addie. She was asked recently, would she pardon Trump if she becomes president? She said she would. So she really can't decide. Well, this week she suddenly decided to call Donald Trump a liar, and everything out of his mouth is a lie. Which, like, which one is it? Today, DeSantis is finally going after Trump too. The thing is, it's a little late for both of these guys. I do not. What's the word I'm looking for? I understand where they're coming from in the Republican Party. If you criticize Trump, it doesn't tend to do very well for you. The guy that devoted his campaign to going after Trump was Chris Christie, governor of New Jersey, former, and didn't help him. He's not registering very well at all in the primaries, basically saying Trump's a disaster. We've got to get back to the law and order, blah, blah, blah. It's not working. DeSantis, who's the governor of Florida, I think, and Nikki Haley, who was the governor of South Carolina, also was Trump's United Nations ambassador, they were trying to basically embrace Trump, but say that they were different, but they embraced him because they didn't want to be negative. Right? It's confusing. I mean, and finally, now they're being negative and calling them liars and everything else. So let's see if it helps. In America, we call that a Hail Mary, which basically means sort of it's a football reference. I'm not a football guy, but I get it. Basically saying when you're losing and you've only got a couple seconds left in the game, and you just throw whatever you can, just see if maybe on the off chance it works. So they're trying to throw whatever they can sort of at the end of it, but it's very weird. It's very weird. Any case, all right, that is it for the news. Let's move on, guys. Nancy, you couldn't be more wrong about the microphone, just so you know. The microphone is my computer. I'm not moving around. The microphone is the computer today, and I was counting on the rest of you to jump in and explain this to people when they write that stuff, so please do. Everything's unplugged today. There's a problem with the internet or something else going on around at my mom's place. It should be fine next week. Back in DC, we'll see. All right, guys. So let's do Q&A, comments, whatever you want. Your opinion on all of this. Thoughts about what happened in Mammy Molly. I don't even know what it is. What's Mammy Molly? Thank you, Renzo. The whale. I haven't seen the whale in a long time. No, that's okay. That's okay. It's just a lot of people were commenting, so it was getting annoying after a while. But no, everything's unplugged today on purpose. There's nothing plugged into the computer. It's literally the computer mic, and it's still doing it, which makes me think it might be the streaming service we're using, StreamYard, to actually stream to use, guys, because the computer mic shouldn't be having a problem at all, right? It's a computer. So, yeah, TikTok is always sounding better, but again, TikTok I do via my iPad. Thank you, Cornflower. Appreciate that. Yep. And Darian and Jackie, lots of different TikToks. Thank you, guys. Patty as well. How long do I think the Ukrainians can hold out without U.S. support? I mean, maybe years to some degree, right? I mean, the thing is, the Russians need to, well, okay, some of the military folks are probably better at this than I am, but there's a difference between holding land and taking land, right? Going in the offensive and taking land, you need a lot more firepower to do that, more troops and everything else. Ukraine doesn't need as much to hold land as they do to attack the Russians. But the Russians are like slowly making advancements. Thank you, Joe, right? I mean, we saw this in the last couple of weeks. It's very slow, but they're slowly advancing, which is not good. Thank you, Joe. I'm not convinced the Russians basically, it could take the Russians a couple of years to build up enough troops and enough weapons and enough tanks and everything else to have another big attack. Like, it's not clear the Russians can even do that. They don't have the ability, even if Ukraine's weaker, because the U.S. cut them off. The Russians need to build up their forces for that, and that's going to take a while. That's the good news. But you know, I mean, so I see what everybody else thinks. I'm not convinced the war is over in 6 months if the U.S. cuts them off, but it starts to get a lot harder for the Ukrainians, especially in the year or two when the Russians develop more offensive forces. Right? I mean, right now the Russians are developing their drones and everything, which lets them do a lot, and getting more weapons, more missiles, from North Korea, from Iran, which cause a lot of damage. You know, so this is funny actually. Titch asks something. Thank you for the gift. Titch is asking about a little rumor about Russian General Gerasimov's killing. Total rumor. Total rumor. I mean, total BS rumor, it seems. So this is something that I follow a lot of folks on Twitter and elsewhere that are defense experts. And the defense guys on Twitter were saying that basically some websites, including this Visegrad, which is like a Ukrainian news site, but they're not Ukrainian news. They're sort of some people who cover news, right? They're not for a big news service. There was a discussion by some of the OSINT people, some of the defense expert guys that are pro-Ukraine in the West, and they were making jokes in Telegram or one of these social media channels. They were making jokes about Gerasimov, top Russian general, being killed by the Ukrainians. And Visegrad took it and wrote a story saying there were discussed on social media about the top Russian general being killed. Well, all the political people jumped in and went, that was us. We were joking. We were all joking with each other on him being killed. It was obvious it was a joke, and you picked it up and reported on our joke. So that is what I sadly think happened with that story. So yeah, I would be very careful with sites like Visegrad. I would not trust what they say. In general, be really careful with sites that don't give you their source, because most people are getting their information from sources, right? So if they're not willing to tell you, like especially online, when there's specific like breaking news pop up in a tweet, they didn't get it. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. But like if I put up breaking news about Ukraine, I probably didn't get it by phoning my contact in Ukraine, right? I probably got it from a newspaper. If I'm not going to tell you where I got it from, you shouldn't believe me. Thank you, flower lady. Thank you. I was going to call you flower girl. Thinking of weddings on my mind for some reason. Did Israel bomb another hospital? I don't know if they did. Thank you, user 121. I don't know about it. I'd have to see what the story was first. Keep in mind, like the one bombing was fake. It was the Palestinians who did it the first one. So, you know, why can't the U.S. throw away the old attackums in Ukraine? Isn't that a good question? I don't know. Clearly the reason. By the way, what that person's asking about are the longer range missiles that Ukraine's been asking for forever, that the defense experts think Ukraine could actually use, and that the U.S. is refusing to give them. The U.S. finally caved a few months ago. Biden did, and gave Ukraine 19 of the missiles. That was it. Ukraine used them within a month, all gone. U.S. didn't give them any more. And we didn't even give them the missiles they wanted. We gave them the shorter range missiles. We didn't give Ukraine the missiles it needed or wanted. So there are still a lot of the weapons around. They're actually expired, which means either the U.S. is going to destroy them, or it's given to Ukraine. The U.S. will give them to Ukraine. So what that means is, this is where I come back to this issue. This is because Biden doesn't want to give the weapons to Ukraine. He's afraid of something. As far as I'm concerned. He's afraid of pissing off Putin. I don't know how it's going to piss off Putin, because the French and the Germans are already giving similar weapons as far as distance and everything to the Ukrainians. Not the French, the French and the Brits giving cruise missiles that go through similar distances. He's afraid of something, and I don't know what the hell it is, but it's kind of pissing me off at this point. Oh God, Western Sahara? Not really. I've not been really following what's going on with Algeria and Morocco. No. I mean, I know that's been forever, but I'm not up on it. No, sorry. Darren, I'm not sure what you're referring to, which is the Russia's latest anti-air system. That wasn't in Crimea, was it? Because Crimea, I'd read that they destroyed a Russian arms. There was some other mention of something the Ukrainians claimed today, but I wasn't sure. Is that Crimea also? Supreme Court, I don't know anything about Supreme Court and abortion. Nope. Didn't see anything on that. I wasn't really looking for it today, but didn't see it. Well, I mean, Kronos asks sort of the big question: what will Russia do if Ukraine takes Crimea back? That's the big question. And I mean, who knows? I'm not sure Russia will do much of anything if Ukraine were to take Crimea back. Um, Everyone kind of pulls this nuclear thing. Why? Like I said before, why would Russia use all the defense experts say there's zero defense advantage, zero strategic advantage in Russia using nuclear weapons in Ukraine. So at least militarily, Russia gets nothing out of it, right? It's not like they drop the nukes and we've now cleared out the Ukrainians. We can come through. That doesn't help Russia. Um, Dropping the nukes does it scare the West into not helping Ukraine? I think if Russia drops a nuke, we may get involved in the war if Russia starts using nukes. So I think it's the opposite of that. Will dropping a nuke cause Ukraine to give up? No. I think dropping a nuke will make the Ukrainians would be scared, but they'd also be pissed off, I would think. So I don't get. Well, actually, and the final point here, which take us back to the first point, Russia drops a nuke in Crimea. For example, let's say it's Crimea. I mean, they could drop a nuke on Kyiv too, but Crimea here, you've got Turkey down here, you've got Romania, you've got Bulgaria, you've got a lot of different countries that stuff, the nuclear fallout could drift towards. I think Russia drops a nuke in Ukraine, and I think all that's. I think NATO gets involved. I think Poland certainly gets involved. The Baltic states get involved. Britain probably gets involved in some way more than it is now. I just do not see how it benefits Putin, and it risks the world. I don't see how it benefits Putin to drop a nuke. But it's a great way to scare everybody from helping Ukraine, right? Russia, and frankly, Russia may have sent the message to the U.S. At the beginning of the war. It's entirely possible that the Russians sent Biden a message and said, if Ukrainians take Crimea, maybe they said that. Maybe they said it. And that's why Biden is being so weird. 25 years this will come out. I swear to God. And I'll be dead, and you'll all be thinking, well, I'm still alive in 25 years. You'll all be thinking of me, because I wonder if Putin did just come to Biden privately and say, we will use our nukes if he takes Crimea. And I'm just telling you right now. And rather than Biden going, but if I were Biden, I would have gone, use your nukes and we're all at war. Go away. Don't you dare threaten nukes to me. I've got as many nukes as you've got. Don't you dare threaten nukes. That's the appropriate response you give when the Russians threaten nukes. You don't sit there and go, oh, I'm scared. World War III. No. Yeah, well, and ours work, which Igor says exactly, and the French and the British ones work. Thank you, Maxime, for the gift. Right, Yeah, exactly. Ours work, and our military works. And by the way, our military is a hell of a lot bigger and better than your military, all of NATO. So you really want to? That would be my point too. You really want a war with us? Really? When you know we're going to win? Really? Or you're going to make it a nuclear war when you know you're going to die as much as we do? Really? Seriously, the response should have been, Nancy Pelosi once. I forgot what she was talking about. She said, I was in a meeting with her, and she said, and I turned to him and I stamped my heel and I said, hardy har har. But I love that expression, hardy har, like to laugh. Thank you, Carrie O'Keefe, they had mustache, hardy. But he should have turned Biden and said, hardy har har, and let the translator translate for what that was. But seriously, you just turn to me, you laugh and go, I'm laughing in your face. You actually brought up nukes. When I've got nukes too, I am literally laughing in your face. Try it. If you want my country to enter the war against you, try using nukes. That's what I would have said. But, well, no, that's exactly it, though, Serge. I mean, if Putin uses nukes, then he starts a conventional war in Europe, the United States, and a conventional war we will win. And Ukraine is going to be the least of your concerns if you want a conventional war with the United States. Epstein, I've not really been following the Epstein stuff closely enough. As far as the problem I've got with the Epstein stuff, this is the nasty guy who died in jail or whatever. But the problem is these names are coming out, but I'm not seeing enough detail about how they're related, and I don't like that they're just listing names, right? And not telling us, well, this name is this name is, meaning how the names were mentioned, because it almost makes everybody sound guilty. And frankly, maybe even some of the people sound less guilty than they are. By the way, they're not putting it in context. I wish they put it in context a little bit better, personally. But Am I still on Ukraine is winning TikTok? What does that mean? Oh, Ukraine is winning TikTok. You're on Russia isn't winning TikTok. That's for sure. Because if Russia were winning, the war would be over. So, Stephen Hawking. Um, well, that's a whole other question about selling. Yeah, I mean, obviously Malayathos. Thank you. Was that Dunik? Yep, Dunik for the hat. I appreciate that. Oh boy, North and South Korea. What about them though? I'm not sure what you want me to tell you. South Korea is crazy. North Korea, excuse me, North Korea is crazy, and it can be crazy for as always. U.S. fortunately has made clear to North Korea, though. Actually, the message we gave to North Korea was very clear. You use your nukes, and we're wiping you off the map with our nukes. So that, at least, we told North Korea very clearly. You know, correct in that. There's just too many things involved in the Epstein list that I'm not sure I even understand what it means to have somebody's name out there. It's. I don't like how vague it all is, and also kind of some people are going to be criticized, excuse me, and attacked justly, really. You know, thank you, Ukraine, for the super chat. Um, out of our candidates who will stand up to Putin, or did you have what was the rest? What else did you mean to ask? It looks like you meant to ask a little bit more there. Um, I'm not sure what you mean. You don't have to buy it. Thank you for the contribution. Feel free to write a little bit more as to what you meant there with your question, okay? Because I'm not sure what you meant there. And thank you, Sherry, for the heart. Let me see. North Korea is ready to invade South Korea. Well, if they do that, they're going to go to war with the U.S. Lots of possible wars happening around the world. Very bad. Okay. Yeah. I no. Sorry. Yeah. People coming in with scams. Not okay. Sorry. We had a little somebody come in with a scam on Twitter, on TikTok, on YouTube. Thank you, Timothy, for the gift. Yeah, so F Putin, feel free to, like I said, explain a little bit more of what you meant. You don't have to pay for it, of course. Oh, F-16 soon? No. No. We are getting F-16s that Ukraine is able to use for training. That's been happening. Some more arrived today. But when Ukraine actually gets the F-16s, that's a whole other question. I'm not sure what that's going to be. Um, Oh, of U.S. I'm sorry. Okay, out of U.S. presidential candidates, who will stand up and give Ukraine what? So, of the U.S. presidential candidates, basically, Biden, you already know where Biden is, right? Trump has been very anti-Ukraine, very pro-Putin. The one and previously defended Putin's invasion of Crimea, but the one thing that Trump did that was weird and good was several months ago, Trump gave one of his, I'll solve that problem in 1 hour or whatever it was. My eyes are watering. And he claimed that, excuse me, he would sit Putin and Zelensky down and he would tell them, this is the deal. You need to settle the conflict. And he said, and I would tell them, if you don't, you're in trouble. And if Zelensky refused, I'd cut off the weapons. And if Putin, by the way, I'd cut off the weapons, suggest you would actually give Zelensky weapons, which is interesting from Trump, right? He said, if Putin refused to sit down and agree to something, I would tell him, you're going to be sorry because I'm going to give Ukraine 10 times more weapons than you've seen before. The problem is Trump is kind of full of crap. So I'm not entirely convinced that what Trump is saying won't change tomorrow. He's not very consistent on stuff. But it was still good. It was interesting. I mean, he threatened Ukraine, but he threatened Russia too. That was interesting. But generally speaking, Trump has been opposing giving aid to Ukraine in general. Vivek is horrific. Vivek has been parroting Donald Trump and also parroting Russian talking points. Like nonstop. It's literally quoting KGB, FSB talking points. Vivek's horrific. I don't think he understands the issue. I think he's trying to trick people he thinks he's going to be Donald Trump, except that he's quoting a lot of stuff that he's just grabbing from anywhere. And he recently quoted a lot of Russian propaganda. Vivek, he's this Indian American guy running for president on the Republican side. Nikki Haley, very good on Ukraine, very supportive. DeSantis, very bad, but flip flops a lot. So who the hell knows? I mean, literally flip flops a lot. DeSantis does on Ukraine. So because DeSantis wants the Trump voters, and therefore DeSantis tries to be anti-Ukraine. But I think because he's a Republican DeSantis probably doesn't like Russia and probably would like to help Ukraine, but he tries to be MAGA, and MAGA says no. So DeSantis is flip-flopped too much, which is bad. But no, of the candidates, the strongest one after Trump is probably Nikki Haley, although it's much below Trump. And she's very good at Ukraine. She's very good. Why don't I run? Huh? No chance in hell. I don't want to be an elected politician. I'd be too mean. I just don't like the BS, you know. I doubt it. Does the U.S. have the Israeli aero system against nukes? I doubt it. What is the Israeli aero system? I thought, from what I'd read, there really isn't any system that is that great standing up to nukes, to incoming nukes. I'd looked at this a few months ago. You know, so what else? Smart people don't run. Yeah, I mean, seriously. Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry, guys. I'm very tired. Yeah, long-range ballistic missiles, that's a different question. But nuclear missiles, good luck. There's really nothing that can take nuclear missiles down at this point. It'd be nice. Well, in principle, it'd be nice if there would. I mean, you then get a lot of destabilization potentially if nuclear missiles can be taken down, because then you'd have an arms race on taking down the missiles, right? Because if we aren't mutually assured of attacking each other, then one side might use their nukes. Correct. Alan says you can take a nuke down in the initial first stage of launch, but not really after. That was what I read as well. As I said, you have to take it down at the very beginning. And now the only thing I didn't understand, Callan, is the very beginning mean before it launches, or literally as it's coming out of the tube? Or is there a certain period of time going into the sky when you can hit it too? I would think once it starts going into the sky, you're kind of in trouble. You know, other than maybe the very initial takeoff where it's not going as fast. You know, first stage, okay. Stage is like a rocket ship. Okay, interesting. All right. Oh, excuse me. Can't you knock them off course? That's interesting. I don't know. What happens if you intercept an ICBM and push it? What happens? Course correct? Your sister thinks I'm cute. Oh, thank you. Can you course correct an IBM? I'm going to assume you can, right? Because the IBM, I doubt it just launches and, yeah, it would course correct. That's what Callan was saying. Yeah, that was my thought too. Yeah. So Darren says nukes are susceptible until they get into space. Okay. Can we stop wars and do world peace? Sure. All we need is Hamas to turn themselves in and the Russians to leave Ukraine, and we have world peace. I'm all for it, but I'm not convinced it's going to happen. Oh, hey, Vernon. I guess it is Friday, but I'm always a little tired. Oh, but it's Friday, so maybe I'm a little more tired. Boy. Yeah, I mean, you know, with Ukraine F-16s, let's hope they get them a lot sooner than we think. And if we're not told about it, I'm fine as long as they get them early. Mom is doing well. Thank you, bad gal, for asking. What else? Cuba involved with the Russians in the war in any way? Not that I know of, other than the Russians I thought were trying to recruit some Cubans, and Cuba kind of spoke out about it, which was kind of weird. So there's something very strange about the whole thing. But that's about it that we've heard about that. Boko Haram. I'm not sure what's up with Boko Haram. I know of them. They're the bad guys that took all the little girls a while ago. But I don't know of any news regarding them. For you guys. Was somebody being a troll that we weren't sure about? Well, on TikTok, see, the thing is, the mods are being good because, you know, what I tell them is I like us to be sure someone's a troll before we kick them. By troll meaning someone who's here just to disrupt. They're not here to actually be part of the conversation. And I like us to be clear that that's the case before we kick somebody out. Like, somebody could be having a bad day. They could just disagree. I'm okay with that. But before we kick somebody out, I like to make sure they really are a troublemaker. So the mods know that, you know, you kind of, I always say you give somebody 2 or 3 times at least to kind of see see what they write, and if they're a real troll, really a troublemaker, they won't control themselves because that's why they're here. So they'll write several things in a row that just keep getting worse and worse. Thank you, Pam. And you can tell this isn't somebody having a bad day. It's somebody whose job is to give you a bad day. So yeah. Um, the U.S. should continue giving Ukraine more support. You promised it. I agree, but it takes Republicans in Congress agreeing as well to provide the money, and they're refusing so far. Um, you know, how do I think the war will end realistically? I don't know. Um, it's possible this goes on for 10 years and the Russians slowly grab more territory, which worries me. Um, it's possible that, God, it's possible Ukraine ends up agreeing to where things are right now, which I can't imagine, but maybe they would. The problem there is, meaning Russia keeps the land that it invaded, which is a huge loss for Ukraine. But if that happens, guess what? Russia's just going to invade again in a few years. They're going to build their military because Russia wants all of Ukraine. They're just going to invade and do it again. So that's what kind of worries me is ending is a relative state here. Putin wants all of Ukraine. He's coming back for the rest of it. But right now, I could see this going on for years. I could see the U.S. giving less aid, giving kind of guerrilla aid, aid for the Ukraine, or not terrorism, but whatever you want to call it, stuff like that. Oh, we have another troll. I've always told you guys one of my favorite ways of identifying troll is when they throw out the word lie or liar, but they throw it out randomly. Yeah, like right now, somebody wrote lie. Like, I was talking about how the war might end in like 5 years. Like, telling a lie doesn't quite work, right? Thank you, I'm nice. And basically, they're reading talking points they've been given, but they read them without knowing, because my thing is they also don't speak the language. They don't really know what's going on in the conversation, so they always say it at the wrong time. Like, I'll quote Putin. My favorite was one a while ago. I was quoting Putin, so he goes, lie. I'm like, it's the quote from Putin in the Russian paper today. Like, it's really, I mean, maybe it is a lie, but it's your guy, Anyway, blah blah blah. Oops. Need to get la la la. Another Russian. Now, what I like is a Russian just came on YouTube. You've lost half your viewers. You need to stop talking about Ukraine. The war is over. Very fact that the Russians are coming and basically like urging us to stop reporting on Ukraine makes me think they're worried. That's not the kind of quote you get from someone who's what's the word? From someone who's winning the war, right? I mean, maybe you'd come and maybe just crow, we're winning or whatever, right? But you wouldn't, you've got to stop reporting on this right now. You're losing viewers because you're reporting on this. To me, that's almost paranoid, right? It's somebody who's not doing well. But that's not somebody confident. You're losing viewers. You got to stop covering this. Like he's trying to convince me to not cover this anymore. It's like, well, buddy, sorry, we're going to keep covering it. So, although, like I said, over the next year with the U.S. presidential election too, I'm definitely going to be talking a lot about the U.S. election too. So, get ready for it. Hey, Sir Orthodox, you're back. Good to see you. That missile, which missile do you mean, Steve? I saw you write that before, but I don't know which one you're talking about. If you mean the ATACMS, are we talking about? No. Well, not the one we're giving them. I mean, we wouldn't give the Ukraine a missile that could go 500, 600. There is a version, I think it goes 500 miles, but we wouldn't give Ukraine that one. Does Ukraine have any missile that can hit Moscow? What's that? What's the deal on that? Does Ukraine have any missiles that can hit Moscow? I mean, the cruise missiles they've been working on, right? Have they not used it just because they're kind of trying to be good with the West? And frankly, it's not clear whether it does anything. Probably, kind of a mix. In theory, probably no. Okay, that was officially everything. Yeah, but Storm Shadows, they've been told by the Brits probably don't go just lobbing them into Moscow randomly, I guess. I would guess that's the case. Well, drones, they've been using drones. Thank you, Don. But we think the drones are probably being used. I think the drones are being like imported, and near Moscow they take off and then attack Moscow. Thank you, C3, Dawn. for the gifts, more gifts. Um, what else? Modified Neptune. Yeah. I mean, I think also Ukraine hasn't really seen the purpose in going after Moscow yet. Thank you, Macabre. Well, that's not entirely true. I mean, part of the problem you've got is if Ukraine attacks Moscow, I mean, it's not like Ukraine has an endless supply of missiles. If Ukraine attacks Moscow, it's a missile it could have used something else. If they're attacking Moscow, are they really going to hit a target that is giving them a great benefit? Or are they doing it more as a terror weapon to try to just freak the Russians out, freak the Russian people out, make Putin look weak? Now, that may serve a purpose. Um, the West probably wouldn't be thrilled, and Ukraine is still hoping, to get more weapons and support from the West. So my guess is they're not lobbing weapons into Moscow a lot, other than their drone attacks, because they don't want to lose, America and other support. They're afraid that we'd get pissed off, but also they've only got so many weapons to fire, and does it really get them anything? It causes a little terror, which isn't bad, but does it really get them anything? Or would it be better to use the weapon against a Russian ammunitions storage or something, right? And I think the defense folks would tell you, use it for something that is getting a big impact. Don't just do it because you're pissed at them and you want to scare them. North Korean troops. There have been rumors forever about North Korea supposedly offering troops to the Russians. Who knows? Who knows? But there's certainly been no progress on that. Or even no evidence that the rumors were true that they were talking about it. So uh, remember, tomorrow we've got our coffee talk. So with the monthly subscribers on TikTok and YouTube and everywhere else, you can become a monthly subscriber very easily. TikTok, just go to the subscriber thing. I don't know, on the screen here it's somewhere, but if you go to my profile, there's a link that says subscribers or something. Let me pull it up. I think live subscription. Oop, hello. Thank you, Joe, for the hat. But you see sort of below the link, below the URL link tree, you see tips, live subscription. You can use live subscription and basically become a monthly donor. Thank you, Richard. You can also do it on YouTube. There's some, again, $ at the bottom of the screen or something. You can join YouTube memberships. You can do it with Ko-fi. You can do it with Discord. Ko-fi as well. A number of you guys know that. It's kind of like a Patreon. Use that bottom of the screen there. For you guys, you can find my Ko-fi via the link tree link that's in my bio on TikTok. But if you can help, I'd appreciate it. It helps to have sort of the monthly stream. Although the gifts are helpful too, so please keep those coming too. Did Biden weaken the Mexican border, or is that just a talking point? Oh boy. I certainly don't believe the talking points, okay? Because here's the problem with the border stuff, I think. And this will piss off both sides, so maybe I'm right. Republicans, I think, lie left and right about the border because it's just a political issue for them. It's just a political issue. I don't think they want the border solved entirely because they just want to be able to bash Democrats. So I don't really trust, for example, Trump, his wall. He built like, what was it, 50 miles or something of new wall? He didn't even build the wall. He claimed he built it. He didn't build it. So Trump was getting a lot of money and again, I'm not even opposed to a wall if it actually works. If it actually worked and cut down illegal immigration significantly, I wouldn't oppose it per se, which again, Democrats would be pissed to me. But I think a lot of Republicans, the party people, are just putting out BS. And therefore, I don't believe them when they say Biden's weakened the border. Having said that, I think Democrats are playing a political game with the border too. And they think, and I don't even think this is true, they think, Latino voters who are still mostly Democratic, maybe 60%, 70%, whatever, they're trending more Republican because of all the religious stuff. But Latino voters who still trend more Democratic than Republican will get upset if we cut off Latinos illegally coming into the country. And I'm not even convinced that's true. From people I talk to, I think a lot of Latinos don't like people coming in illegally either, So, but I think you've got, like I said, I think you've got Republicans just trying to score political points. So I wouldn't believe their arguments. And you've got Democrats who kind of are afraid of cutting people off from coming in. And it's not just Latino voters. The same base of the Republican Party that freaks out and says, we're not going to vote for Biden if he doesn't give us our student loans, if he doesn't, cut off Israel, whatever. These are the same people going nuts about the border. So in the Democratic Party, even the stuff I'm saying, you're not allowed to say the stuff I'm saying because it was as a Democrat, that's bad. We're not supposed to say we don't want people coming in illegally. We're not even supposed to call them illegal anymore, which is also bullshit. I think the whole undocumented thing is ridiculous. Undocumented immigrants, they're not immigrants. That's the thing. They're not immigrants. People cross the border illegally. They're not immigrants, right? The undocumented immigrants. I mean, it was like undocumented, as if you know what I mean? Like as if they're here legally and they lost their visa. It's just it's bullshit. Humans can't be illegal. It's just a ridiculous. I mean, it's a cute talking point, but it's ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. If people are here illegally, say they're here illegally. They're not supposed to be here. Well, they're not aliens. I don't think anybody thinks they've got horns and antenna, but it's just, but no, but we play games. I'm sorry, but on immigration, I'm pretty tough. I don't want people here illegally. Once they're here, we don't have a choice, right? You've got a lot of Mexicans and Latin Americans that are here, and once they're here, we don't want to create a second class. Look at what we did with black people and as slaves, and afterwards we created an underclass, and we discriminated against them for hundreds of years, and it's created lots of just ongoing problems. Look at what Europe's done with some of their minorities. Look at France with Algerians, and I mean, you've got a lot of maybe Turkey and Germany too. But in other words, once people are here, you've got to figure out a solution to make them part of society because they're here. What are you going to do? Kick out 30 million people? You know what I mean? But stopping people from coming in illegally? Oh yeah, that's just ridiculous at this point, as far as I'm concerned. And I think, honestly, most Americans agree with me on that one. I'm all for legal immigration, but you come here illegally, you're gone. And Democrats, I think a lot of Democrats would not want to say that. And that's what gets them into trouble. And that's why Republicans like to push the issue. They know Democrats are afraid of saying, yeah, I don't want people here illegally. And crossing the border, it's creepy. I mean, it is creepy to see people people across the border illegally. It's very creepy. The Republicans held a press conference at the border, again, political, and Jake Sherman, who's a very good political reporter in Washington, he did a video and he goes, this is the Republican press conference. And he goes, this is the river right there 30 feet away. It's a family of people coming illegally across the river. And they literally walked across the river and came up the coast and then was arrested by U.S. Border Patrol. But I think Democrats are, unfortunately, there is a left wing of the Democratic Party that the middle is afraid to stand up to. And, what do you do? What do you do? That was crazy, though. Was it, Jen? That video was insane. I was looking at it going, my God, Ukraine is sending shadows to Russian cities. I'm not sure what you mean by shadows, but I know Ukraine's been sending troops in. Although I think Ukraine is working with Russians who are Moscow could very well be Russians, like sleepers. Yeah, the bombing of the bridge, the rail bridge, and everything out in way eastern Siberia, I think was Russians, right? Setting the Su-34 fighter on fire in Chelyabinsk, we said today, was Russia. Were Russians? I suspect, So, but I wouldn't. I'm fine with Ukraine standing in sleeper cells. Why not? Right? They're at war. Why not? Well, let me tell you my story about illegal immigration in the U.S. Back in the late 1990s, I was working for a civil rights client in Washington, D.C. Had a lot of clients like that, and we were doing something. About. It was actually about hate crimes, but it was one of the two big Latino human rights groups in the U.S. I think it was LULAC, actually, one of the two big ones. And we were talking, and I was asking the woman, and I said, how many people are here illegally? And this was late 1990s. And she said to me, and I quote you, this is the big Latino human rights, civil rights group in America. How many people are here illegally from Latin America? She said, somewhere between 16 and 60 million. And I said, wait, did you say 16 and 66 0? She said, yes. I said, somewhere between that amount? She goes, yes. I said, we have no idea. She goes, we have no idea. No idea. And I was like, holy crap. right? Now, if you ask people, the number you get is 11,000,000. I'm like, "Where did the other 50,000,000 go?" Now it's 11,000,000. I'm like, "Okay, okay, sure, whatever." It's clearly a problem, especially when we couldn't count them. But now we're sure how many there are. I'm like, "Okay, whatever." But no, I'm not a big fan of they left. I doubt they left. Um, I'm just not a big fan of illegal immigration. So, come here legally, come here as a legitimate refugee, and you're set. So, uh, I don't know about that stooge. I don't know what that was about. I don't know. I don't know. Uh, beep, beep. Who was that? Oh, thank you, Foodie, for that. Um, what else, guys? Just looking here. Otherwise, we can wrap up soon. Um, that's interesting. Stu says, never forget it was Republican icon Ronald Reagan who issued the first and only immigration amnesty. Well, and again, some of that really don't. GF Ballman just said the same thing. Reagan pardoned a lot of illegals. And some of that goes back to what I was saying, where once people are here, you may have to accept that they're here and figure out how to integrate them into American society. And basically say, do we want a permanent underclass of people who came illegally? And and once again, we have yet another class of citizens that we treat poorly, that don't have access to banking. That right? I mean, we create another poor class that then has all sorts of problems. Thank you, Jeremy. Or do we figure out how do we integrate these people and make them Americans, basically? And I would say you do the latter. If they're here and they can't, if they're here and they're clearly not going to get rid of them, then you know, then figure out a way for amnesty. But at the same time, better shut that damn border. I mean, you know, well, if they're already here, and again, it depends what we mean by already here too. I mean, somebody crosses the border and they've been here 3 months. I don't have a lot of sympathy for them. If they get caught, they should leave. Right? Somebody who's been living here for 20 years, that's a little different, right? Somebody who's born here from parents who are here illegally, that's a different story, right? The dog's looking. Oh, the dog's got to go out, guys. All right. You want to hang a minute? We can talk a few more minutes. Let me take the dog 1 second out. I haven't had to do one of these in a while. I'll be right back, and then we can go another 5 minutes. All right, you. All right, you. Hopefully, I've got your leash here. I do have your leash here. All right. Let's all right. All right. All right. Oof. All right. There we go. We have to get that dog break occasionally. She hasn't done one of those in a long time, actually. I've had to like jump out in the middle of the show to take her out. Oh well. Uh, what else? What else? What else? Sasha is back. Um, that's the question, Brendan. Brendan says, with the recent loss of 5 Russian fighter jets or 4 Russian jets, are we seeing Ukraine flex some F-16 muscle? People were wondering. I mean, it was weird. The thing, others are saying that they think it was a recent Patriot missile system that the Germans gave the Ukrainians, and it allowed the Ukrainians to shoot the 5 or 6, no, 5 jets out of there, 5 fighters out of the air that one day, like a week ago or so, or 2 weeks ago at most. And that may be it. I mean, to me, what is weird about that story is, why were the Ukrainians able to shoot these 5 planes down in one day? what happened, and 3 of them within 1 hour. What happened, right? Something happened the Russians weren't expecting. Something changed on the battlefield. That could be the Ukrainians are using F-16s, maybe, or it also could be simply this Patriot missile system, a new system, and the Ukrainians toted it around and brought it somewhere the Russians weren't expecting, right? And they turned it on, and it blew the Russian planes up. So it's entirely possible that was it too, you know? Um, oh, you got your dad on my YouTube? That's fun. Um, so I don't know. I mean, so I think F-16s are less likely. It'd be pretty freaking cool though if they had them and were already using them. Yes. Yeah. The Patriot, well, that's what Gooderman's saying. They didn't know the Patriot was there. That's what I'm thinking. They got the Patriot and they snuck it in the area. I hear you. Just wait, Sash. Sasha wants to play. And they, no, quiet, quiet, quiet. Come on. Quiet, quiet, quiet. Here, you want to come up a little bit? She wants to play. I hear you. Could you hear the squeak? Sasha, we're trying to discuss very serious stuff here. Very serious stuff. Yeah. Hi. Yes. With the orange toy. Very serious stuff here. You got to wait, Sash. Germany just donated new air defense to Ukraine. I think I saw that a couple days ago. Yes. Thank you, Pedro. I know this week is funny. I'm sorry, Sash. We'll play afterwards. Okay, we'll play after. Don't worry. Don't worry. Um, Used took out some of Russia's Crimean defense radars. That's what somebody was saying here. I thought I saw a vague reference to that, but I wasn't sure. Well, again, we know this. I'm petting the dog here. We know, thank you, Nicola, that there was some kind of big attack the Ukrainians did yesterday in Crimea. All I could find on it was, well, the Russians saying it did nothing, of course, big surprise. But the Ukrainians saying they hit an ammunition depot storage for the Russians. And I saw some other weird message about some anti-aircraft something, but don't know what they hit. Aussies gave Ukraine a super radar plane they can see all the way from Romania. Huh. Oh, I don't know about that. Apprehensive Mona. What's the most disturbing video you've seen from the Ukraine war? The thing is, I tend not to watch the disturbing stuff if I know it. So, I mean, I say, I've seen pictures of Russian troops getting bombed and stuff, but not from up close, right, from in the sky. Thank you, Hedge. There were some very nasty videos of Ukrainian troops being tortured alive and then killed that I refused to watch. Those came out, and I was not going to watch them. Not going to watch them. So, no, didn't watch any of those. But Bucha, there were no videos of Bucha that I saw. Right? Some people dead, but well, the Bucha stuff might be because it was sort of street level and a lot of nasty. That might have been. I don't know. Might have been, but like I said, I haven't seen the worst stuff because I intentionally don't want to watch the worst stuff. I just can't. Hey, Mavili, good to see you. Actually, I still need to see that 20 days in Mariupol thing. Yeah, that Danny just mentioned. Because that's supposed to be awful. Good to see, awful, but awful. You should see it. Why'd they stop attacking the bridge? My guess is a few things. Limited resources. If you go after the bridge, you're going to use up a lot of your weapons. I mean, Callum has told us before they should probably use the Storm Shadows, but limited numbers of the Storm Shadows. If you go after the bridge, how effective are you at taking it out? Are you taking it out so it can be fixed again in 3 months, 6 months, right? My guess is the Ukrainians were waiting to sort of in the counteroffensive to come down all the way to the coast, and then when they came down to the coast and cut off the Russians, they then were going to bomb the bridge, I think. And then you've now cut off the Russians by coming down to the coast here and by cutting off the bridge below. So the two main ways of supporting Russia's invasion in the West have been cut off. So I think because it never happened, they figured, yeah, we can blow up the bridge, but what does it get us? Maybe we should use the missiles on, again, ammunition, on headquarters, on other places. Also, it's a very easy answer to give in probably military terms or foreign policy, which is if they're not going after the bridge, there's a reason for it. And the reason is they've got something better to go after. Or it's much hard, it costs too much to go after the bridge. God, there's a question. Tickety tock. It's been 2 years. How do you sum up the results to someone that didn't know about this war? Whew. It's tough because you also kind of, it's not just results. You kind of have to talk about what happened at the beginning. Um, you'd probably say Russia invaded. Actually, you'd give numbers. Russia invaded, took 35% of the country occupied. Ukrainians pushed back, got 17% back, and then they got stuck. And now the Russians control 17%, Ukrainians control the rest, and neither side's moving. That would be my quick answer in terms of about the results, right? Because it's true, Russia came in and took a lot, Ukraine pushed them back halfway. Those are the results, and now both sides are stuck. I think. Um, Ukraine forces shut down Crimea Bridge in 2024, or they will, you mean, Maxime? Because Zelensky said they were going to be focusing on it this year. I mean, he did say that's one of their main targets to go after. So, and Crimea, actually Crimea overall. So, you know, how many Ukrainians are still captured by the Russians now? I don't know that we know. Prisoners of war. There's also children they've got too. But prisoners of war, I don't know how many POWs they've got. Does anybody know? Ooh, excuse me. Um, oh, Robert F. Kennedy. Ooh. Yeah, but he's still a conspiracy nut. So he may be. I'm glad. I didn't know he was not sober before. I'm glad he's sober, but Jesus Christ, Nancy Pelosi's not a drunk. Pelosi's actually quite impressive and a very impressive politician. You know, like her or not, Pelosi was one hell of a speaker in terms of her effectiveness. So I didn't describe any of the bad stuff. I said dead people, Deb. You've got to deal with the word dead people and not freak out. I didn't describe anything. I said soldiers tortured. None of that is, yeah, none of that is anything to warn people about. Um, Recap. Yeah, I can do a quick recap. I can do a quick recap, and then we'll call it. And then we'll call it quits. Well, Deb, as I said, you're going to have to get a little bit of a stiff upper lip because I'm not going to. I can only censor things so much. I'm sorry. I think it's too sensitive, and you might be, and that's too bad. But there's only so much I can do. I'm not going to. I'm just not going to. I do what I do, and that's all I can do. All right, Ukraine. Coffee Talk tomorrow. So remember, tomorrow morning, our monthly subscribers join us on TikTok and YouTube, TikTok and Discord, excuse me, for the monthly paid subscribers. I appreciate all you guys. Thank you very much. Today is day 680 of Putin's 3-day special military operation. Institute for Study of War says that if Russia wins in Ukraine, U.S. adversaries will learn that the U.S. can be manipulated into abandoning its interests. Ukraine says Russia attacked with 29 drones overnight, 21 were downed. Ukraine forces struck on January 4th a Russian ammunition warehouse in Crimea. Ukraine's military intelligence also seemed to suggest that Ukraine was behind setting a Russian Su-34 fighter jet on fire 1,000 miles inside Russia at an airbase, which is pretty wild considering the distance. Ukraine also reportedly sent a team into Russian Belgorod, right across the bottom of the border from Kharkiv. Russian attacks on January 4th again damaged a thermal power plant, an electrical power plant in Ukraine that they've been hitting for a while now, showing that Russia is in fact still going after Ukraine's electrical generation ability over the winter. Two Norwegian F-16 fighter jets landed in Denmark today to support training of Ukrainian personnel on the planes. Russia has confirmed that it blocked the UN nuclear watchdog from accessing part of Ukraine's Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant. Ukraine and Latvia are working on joint projects in drone production. Chechen leader Kadyrov offered 20 Ukrainian prisoners of war in exchange for lifting of U.S. sanctions on his family, which is, I thought, kind of interesting, suggesting the sanctions might be having some impact. Sweden is withdrawing aid from Mali's military junta over the junta's support for Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Then I talked about Biden's speech about Trump, warning that Trump is a danger for democracy. And then we ended by saying that DeSantis and Haley were probably the two top Republican candidates after Trump for president in terms of popularity, that they both have basically turned on Trump, but it's a little late. It's a little late. um, because it's only 10 days to the Iowa, caucuses, and they've got to decide if they keep not attacking Trump, and they can't decide which one is safe, and you know, it ain't good. All right, let's call it quits, guys. Tomorrow morning, like I said, 11 a.m. Central, noon Eastern time, U.S. We'll be doing our coffee talk hangout for the monthly subscribers. So join us on TikTok for the TikTokers. Thank you, Mark Starr. The rest of you join us on Discord. And other than that, I will not be back Monday because I'm flying back to DC Monday. Remember, I was flying back Sunday and the flight got changed because apparently there's going to be winter storms in DC and the East Coast on Saturday and Sunday. So I'm flying back Monday instead, which means by the time I get back, well, by the time I get home, no. By the time I get home, it's going to be, oh, it's going back east too, which means I lose an hour, right? Yeah. No, I'm not even going to, I'm probably not landing until, what time about 5 o'clock? I don't think it's going to get me there in time. Yeah. To do the show. I don't think so. Monday, unfortunately. Let me look here. It says I arrive at 4 p.m., but that means I'd get home by 5. Yeah. It's just too hard. Thank you, Marie. Also, I think after flying all day, even though it's not a long fly, after flying all day, thank you, Wayne. It's just going to be, I may do something. Maybe I'll pop in later and hang out. I might do that. I'm not afraid of clowns. No, I'm not afraid of clowns. I always find it funny that people are afraid of clowns. I guess I get it kind of, but I don't really. I just never understood that, the fear of clown thing. Yeah. Weird. Strange thing to ask, but recipe talk. I know we do need to do a recipe talk. Well, right, maybe we can do that Friday night or Monday night. We'll see. All right, guys, let me go. I'm going to go inside, see what we're doing about dinner, and I don't find clowns funny, but equally not scary. That's very poignant, Callum. All right, guys. I will see you Tuesday. Those of you who I don't see tomorrow morning for our regular hangout. Hopefully, Vlad's joining us. He's been kind of not chatting much this week, so I hope things are okay. And I have heard from him, so I know he's okay. But you know what I mean. Otherwise, see you guys on Tuesday. Okay. All right. Have a good weekend.